Thank you for coming back. We'll start here in the first part of class today. I'm going to talk about, Michael has a question about homework, so we'll talk about that question, and then I'll discuss the midterm. I'll pause this video, not pause it, I'll stop this video, so I'll keep that out of the list. It'll go on the website, so you can always find it, but it'll be separate from the list of the factor analysis videos that we're going through right now. Okay? Mike, excuse me. Michael, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, so in question 8 from homework 3, I'll just read what it is, but I'll just ask you a question I have.
Okay.
So the question is, based on the items in your second model, do the two constructs from the scenario get measured by the factor you created? Why or why not?
Yes.
And so, based upon what I have seen and just thinking just in general, how would you go about just to say a construct is measuring an item based off of my
And so it's the other way around. Items are measures of constructs. So if I put that in my text wrong, I'm wrong about that. Yeah.
constructs are measured by the factor you created.
Okay. Maybe I got the wording wrong. Think of it this way. Think of it this way. This is not a statistical task. What you did in the homework, and we're going to get through why we do that today when we go through the example. The homework walks you through. It says you've got this real data
Yes.
from some body dysmorphic disorder scale that I worked with 20 years ago, or friends worked with at a different university 20 years ago. The intent was that they wrote, was it 12 items? I can't remember, 14 items to measure this construct called body dysmorphia, the inaccurate perception of one's own body, basically. But according to the manual, so for those of you who don't do a lot of social science research, in psychology, there's this manual called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's like a recipe book for all the things that you can be diagnosed with. There are other similar, this is the American Psychological Association's book. There's similar ones. Was it OECD? I feel like has a version of it as well, international wise. But this is more to the United States and the American Psychological Association here. That book describes the disorder, body dysmorphia, and then it also has two criteria to try to determine whether a person meets this distinction of whether or not they have body dysmorphia. So giving the backstory, the purpose of this instrument is to try to measure people's amount of dysmorphia in their body. But to do so, you sort of have to pay attention to those two categories. In fact, you could even think about it as perhaps we really want to measure both of those categories in a narrow sense, and then think about a broader sense of what dysmorphia really is. Although in this case, we're not doing that. So you have 14 items that you wrote, and the writing of those items generally gets aligned to those categories. If I can give you another analogy, I work a lot in educational measurement. I work with some, actually, in just a few weeks, 20% of students in the state of Kansas will be doing assessments that I haven't created, but people I know created on this sense. And those assessments are in grades 3 through 8, a little bit in high school, a little bit below that. But each district that we work with is teaching certain curricular standards in math, right? So you get into my son's in 5th grade. He's doing things with numbers and data. He's maybe doing things with algebraic operations or basic algebraic operations. Maybe anyway. If you look online, Iowa has a set of curricular standards. You're teaching those curricular standards. We're assessing those curricular standards. Everything is sort of supposed to be synergistic, right? So body dysmorphic disorder has those two criteria. The items should align to one or both of them. So you go and fit 14 item scale. You should see it doesn't fit well. What do you do? Right? There's not many statistical remedies that are easy, right? That don't involve changing what the definition of this scale happens to be, right? In statistics, we could add residual covariances, which we'll talk about today, but that makes it no longer body dysmorphia, it's body dysmorphia and stuff. It weakens the validity for it, right? Okay, great. You could add another dimension. You could add a second factor or a third factor, but now it's no longer body dysmorphia, it's body dysmorphia, and you have to describe what these other factors are. And you also have to have some conception of what that is, right? So what we did was the statistical argument for removing items. We took a look and tried to categorize which items fit the worst, and then remove them, making model 2. But when you remove items, what you're measuring may change, because those things that you're measuring, even if they don't fit, may not align well with what happens. So it may be the case that one or more of those items, one or more of those criteria, the 2 sub-criteria of body dysmorphic disorder, may not have any items measuring it, or may not have a sufficient number of items measuring. Now, in this case, it's a unidimensional scale, so it shouldn't make a difference either way. So to answer your question, what I'm saying is count. Take a look at what's left over. See which dimension or which subdimension they're aligned to, and describe what it looks like.
In terms of the 2 DSM.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's it.
I can do this.
Yeah, it's a very non-statistical task when you get down to it. It's what is it that you, now that you've altered your instrument, basically what you're going to use. That's it. And from a, well, I think we call it a construct validity point of view, which is what are the items? What are they implying? Do you fully get the definition? Now, here's the funny thing about it. I'm spending extra time talking about this. So this is not just homework. This is life and dealing with factor analysis. So the funny thing about that is if you include items that round it. So let's imagine you get down to how many? Is it 6, 8? 6 items. And for whatever reason, none of them measure the second criteria. What do you do then? Okay, you clearly can't do anything about that second criteria, but if you add items that were to measure it, they don't fit. So the question would be, is that really part of the construct, or is this a separate idea altogether? Or are those items that you would add back part of it? So what you're losing, and so basically to meet the requirements of model fit, you've had to go and change what you're measuring. And if you want to put it back to what you had defined before, there's not a real easy path to do that. Because if the items don't fit, now you're not going to make good inferences. Similarly, if you add items, for instance, if you say my construct really is bad, I need an item that really doesn't relate to the factor to be on the scale. Sometimes this happens in ed measurement, sometimes it happens in psychological measurement, where you have an item where the loading, remember the factor loading variable? That thing is close to 0. You'd say this item is not related to the scale. It turns out that item also not only related to the scale, if you go and create a factor score or a latent variable estimate of it, it has very little bearing on that estimate. But if you remove it from the scale, you lose construct validity, but it doesn't change your score one way or the other to leave it on. So this is the messy situation that you get yourself into. It's fuzzy. And so that's part of the reason why the question in some ways was fuzzy, sort of getting you to think about when you remove items for any reason, you've changed what you're measuring, even if you couldn't leave them in.
So based upon, I don't want to get into big detail, but based upon how maybe we interpreted some of the questions earlier, my answer may be different than everybody else
Yes.
that answered the course.
That's exactly right. And that is how we do scale development. Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on that, or anybody else have thoughts on that? You see the tough position to be in when it doesn't fit? What do? Change your definition, probably. But okay. Second, let's. You all should have seen the midterm. I called it a study guide. I don't know what to call it. I just want to give you some knowledge. Knowledge is power. Hopefully, knowledge is anxiety reduction. You can bring in 2 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper filled with your handwriting. I don't care what font it is. Just make it your handwriting. Because why? If you write it, you're studying, and that's what I want you to do. Be it, okay? Please bring a pen or a pencil. I have to figure. I've never. It's been so long since I gave an exam that I have to figure out how to get copies. I haven't done that before, but I will have copies. There will be multiple choice questions. There'll be a few open-ended questions on the form itself. You can expect the exam to take no longer than an hour, most likely. And if you're someone who takes exams slower, make it 2 hours. Fine, no big deal. But we certainly will not be 3 hours of material. If you're all done within 30 minutes, awesome. No big deal. Have good rest of your day. We're not going on with class, okay? So hopefully not too long, but it will be comprehensive. to what we talked about in path analysis and factor analysis. I'm not including item response theory, which I hope to get to next week, but we're not including that in the exam. So you can even start studying now, and you already are doing the homework, okay? What you can find for questions, we'll have questions about the theory that underlies the methods we have. So, for instance, why is lack of model fit an indicator of poor validity? Something along those lines, right? Well, because if you think of it as Z causing X and Y, and when you condition on Z, there's no correlation. If you still have a correlation left over, that suggests it's not just Z that causes X and Y, right? So not just the variable that's causing the responses. Something like that. I will have questions about syntax. They will not be hard questions. I'm not going to expect you to reproduce reams of syntax, but you can look at it this way. Here's somebody's path model. What's misspecified in the syntax, right? And it won't be a 30 variable model. I have to put it on a piece of paper, so it'll be small. It could also be which one of these symbols is the residual covariance symbol in Lavon, or which one of these symbols indicates a factor model, which we'll talk about later today as well. Something along those lines, right? But nothing, I will not discuss syntax. I will not have anything about like the call to Lavon, like the Lavon function or the SEM function. I'm only going to talk about the code for in the quotes of the text, right? How you develop it. The rest of it, function calls and things that require you to look up are details. I don't want that, but things that are fairly minor. Minor being what's in the quotes. There'll be questions about output. So I will have Lavon output, and you can imagine questions like, does this model fit the data? Describe why or why not, things like that. I will have questions about the drawings of the path diagrams themselves. So how to interpret a path diagram, how to make a path diagram even, things like that, right? And then there will be small calculations. Small meaning nothing that you need a calculator for, anything that will be literally on your fingers, okay? So you can think of multiplication and division by integers, okay? I will say that I didn't put on here, but I need to put the exam's all closed computer, and you get the notes that you bring in, okay? Sound okay? Questions about any of that? Yeah.
You said that if we need a formula, they will provide
Absolutely.
all formulas that we may need.
Yes. No, let me back up for a second here. I will provide anything that, so for instance, like there may be a question, we get into, I don't like the formatting here, but I did this in Google Docs and then downloaded it and I should check the formatting. Anyway, here, like an indirect effect, for instance. How do you calculate an indirect effect? It's a product of, so I need you to know what is a product and what is not, but the formula that I suggested someone get a tattoo of, I'm not going to ask about. Or if need be, I will make sure that, yes.
I went to development when he got that tattoo.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Actually, the same thing. So
Is it statistics?
no.
Okay.
It's a matching one with 10 though.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. I'm just kidding. So I guess I'm trying to make a distinction. Like, know how to calculate an indirect and a total effect. I won't give you those formulas, but when it comes to lambda phi lambda transpose plus psi, I don't even think I'm going to ask you a question about that. I think that's probably more of the backstory. It'll be more like it might be, here's the formula, what does it do? Why is it needed? What is the relevance of it? But I will give that to you. But again, you can have, like I said, 2 pages, front and back, small font. If you're like me and my age, my eyes worked great up until like last year, and now I'm feeling the age-related vision, like close vision. So for me, I'd probably need a magnifying glass, but do it. You can, you can bring a magnifying glass if you'd like. Just make sure it's handwritten. That's all. Study, right? Anyway, trying. But yeah, does that make sense? So where the limit of like okay. But basically, the details will be what we're going through. Where to focus will be the slides. Pay attention to the slides and the example from today, the example from path analysis. It'll be a thorough exam about how to do model analysis and path analysis, or even confirmatory factor analysis, checking model fit, and then the sort of what does it mean after it's done. That'll be probably what we're doing. Okay?
Will we do comparisons of like EFA?
No, I will not have any EFA. No EFA, no principal components. In fact, the videos that I referred you to watch, I'm not gonna have anything on there. Okay? It'll all just be things that I've talked about here. Okay? All right, how's this for clarity? So far, so good? Okay, now I have to make sure I remember this when I create the exam. But I actually, that's why I actually built this. It wasn't just for you, it was for me, so that I can use this when I go and build the exam. I do not want to trick you. There will not be a trick question on the exam. And if you get to a part where it feels like a trick question, it might be needing a more like a little higher abstraction level of thought. Like, how does this relate to something else or something that would do that? Okay? Yeah.
Sorry, I was just looking at the homework, not to drag us back.
Yeah, no problem.
When you ask us to report things, do you also want an interpretation or just?
No, you can just report it. I'll spare you. Other questions? Okay. Anybody tired? I should pause this.